Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scout Selections here for Monday, September 23rd. Before we get into today's play of the day, we'll quickly recap what happened yesterday. We picked up a nice winner with the Los Angeles Rams minus 3.5, which was available at at Heritage at minus 105. Definitely a bigger sweat than I thought it would be, but either Freddie Kitchens' play calling late in that game did us a solid as they ended up running a draw on 4th and 9, then had 3 timeouts at the goal line on first down and decided to not run the ball once and call 4 pretty unenthusiastic passing plays. And the Rams held, so they ended up winning. Pretty much went, I'd say, similarly to the way that I thought, in the sense that I thought that the coaching advantage was just too big for the Rams, as McVay was able to try to use the clock correctly and try to use some. I just thought he just coached a much better game than Kitchens, and it looked like Kitchens was overwhelmed. It was worth noting, though, I've mentioned before, I'm not the biggest Jared Goff guy. This game didn't really do much for my confidence for him, as I really didn't think Goff played that well. He played good enough to win. I thought Mayfield was average at best. His stats weren't great, but his offensive line also didn't do him any favors. Nick Chubb looked good. The rest of the offense for the Browns didn't really do much. But overall, we ended up picking up a winner, which is a good way to finish last week. Now, we will be transitioning to Monday Night Football on a very limited betting card, as there are only 5 baseball games with pretty much no other sports besides preseason hockey and Monday Night Football. And it's a matchup between the Bears and the Redskins. Not the most exciting matchup in the world, but we will look to make it more exciting by trying to cash a ticket on it. So that way you can start your week out with some nice profit. And in terms of the play of the day, we're going to be taking the first half under, which is available at 20.5 at Pinnacle at minus 120. And that will be the line that we are using. It is pretty much available market-wide at 20 at either minus 110 or minus 115. But Pinnacle's offering it at minus 120, and you get the extra half point. So I think that there is value on that, and I will choose to take that instead. So the main reason why I like the under in the first half doesn't really even involve the teams. If you need a great trend to follow so far in the NFL season, there have been 9 primetime games, which means that either Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night going into today's game. Because you had 4 in week 1 with 2 Monday night games, and you had 3 last week, and you've already had the Thursday and the Sunday game this week. So you've already had 9 primetime games. The first half under in those 9 games is 9-0, which means that every game that you've seen so far has gotten off to a slow start, and you have seen a very small amount of points. So I expect that trend to continue in this one. I think that the first half under in NFL primetime games should end up being at 10-0 by the end of the night. It also helps with the teams that are in play, as you have the Bears versus the Redskins. Redskins defense has not looked great so far this season, but they have dealt with several injuries, specifically to defensive lineman Jonathan Allen as well as cornerback Quinton Dunbar. Both of them are expected to play in this game. Quinton Dunbar is currently listed as probable. Jonathan Allen is currently listed as questionable. However, it is expected, according to various news outlets, that Jonathan Allen will end up playing, which should do a lot to help Washington in the trenches against Chicago, as they will look to generate pressure as well as to clog up some of the running lanes for David Montgomery and co. So I definitely like that Washington is getting a little bit healthier, and I think that even though Washington has struggled defensively, I think that getting Allen and Dunbar back will be huge for them. Do I think they are great players on their own right? Maybe not necessarily, but I think they're definitely better than the replacements that Washington has used to fill the void, and I think that should lead to a better defensive showing by the Redskins. Plus, it's also worth mentioning that they are going up against the Bears, and you get to deal with Trubisky, and I think I've proven in week 1 the last thing you want to do with Trubisky is either bet money on him or bet money on the over, as Trubisky, I think, is a bottom 5 quarterback in the entire league. I think he's a bust. You can say that he's too young to determine that, but when you're in the same draft class as Watson and Mahomes, and as Watson and Mahomes, and you get selected number 2 overall, you don't pan out, you're a bust. So overall, even if Washington's defense isn't that great, I still don't think Trubisky is a good enough quarterback to take advantage of that. I think Chicago will continue to run the dump-off Matt Nagy playbook of we're just going to run the ball a bunch of times, throw a bunch of dump-off passes to Tyreek Cohen, and call it a day. So I think that Chicago could potentially end the half with 10 points, 13 points. But Chicago's defense, which is probably the best in all of football, I think will do a good job of getting to Case Keenum, especially since Trent Williams, the offensive tackle all-pro, is still in a holdout with the Redskins, and he has not come back. So I definitely think that the Redskins should struggle protecting him offensively. Plus, they can't run the ball. I know Adrian Peterson's a good running back, but he's also like 35. And I think Chicago should do a good job with their defensive front with Khalil Mack, as well as their linebacking core led by Roquan Smith. I think they will do a good job of limiting the Redskins to 6 or fewer points in the first half. So for that reason, I will take the under 20.5 in the first half, which is available at Pinnacle at -120. And that will be the play of the day. Now, in terms of the other plays or the other games on today's card, really not much going on. Baseball, you have 5 games, but most of them, if not all of them, involve at least one playoff contender, with the exception of the Toronto Blue Jays and Orioles game, which is just a complete filler that is a waste of everybody's time. But the Rays are playing today, the Mets are playing today, the Cardinals are playing today, the Nationals and the Phillies play against each other. So a decent amount of these games will have playoff implications, but in terms of the game itself, don't really have many thoughts on any of the games on that card. I would lean to the Phillies slightly. Do I feel confident in that play? Not necessarily. Corbin's been very good at home. Eflin's been okay on the road. But I just simply think the Nationals are starting to choke a little bit. They won 2 out of 3 against Miami. They didn't really look great. And they are currently tied with the Brewers for the first wild card spot. I don't like the way the Nationals have played in the last 2 weeks or so. For me, I feel like if you are going into the home stretch of the playoff race and you have a chance to clinch a playoff spot and yet you continue to stumble over yourselves, I question on this team's ability to close. Plus, the Nationals have a terrible bullpen. I think the Nationals probably shouldn't be as big of a favorite as they are in this game, as the Nationals are currently -200 or -215 in some spots. I think that's too high. I would only lean to the Phillies for value, as you could probably get them at roughly +180, give or take. I think that it has some value to it. Other than that, though, not many other thoughts on the card. But before we conclude today's video, though, a quick reminder of our sponsor, PointsBet, all in sportsbook in New Jersey. A couple of great deals for you, up to 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. So if you end up betting on any sports and end up losing, you simply get your money back, which is a great promotion that I wish more sportsbooks would use. Other than that, though, that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here for Monday, September 23rd. And good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.